Good morning. It's Wednesday, February the 5th, and this is The Drill. Thank you. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. Unlike those who pretend to know socialism, I actually do know socialism because I grew up in a socialist household. My podcast is short, approximately 5 to 10 minutes long, because shorter podcasts are easier to download and listen to. My podcast is made available through Spreaker and can be heard on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. Today, the State of the Union, an example of my socialist upbringing, common sense versus power, bring back financial rewards for children, and predictions in psychoanalysis. All that when I come back. Thank you. Welcome back. The State of the Union speech given by President Trump was a fine speech with lots of poignant moments. And I refuse to allow haters, uniform-wearing, lockstep-marching haters ruin an otherwise fine performance by the president. When I come back, an overview of my socialist upbringing. Thank you. I grew up in a socialist household. I spent most of my childhood in a foster home, living with Dutch immigrants, green card holders. I didn't know it at the time, but I realized later that they were hardcore lefties. I kept wondering, why are they so stingy? Why does my foster mother hate America? What does my foster mother mean when she says that something is too nice? Why does my foster mother constantly criticize us for acting so American? Why does my foster mother always say, you've got a bed to sleep in, a roof over your head, and food in your mouth, what else do you want? Well, it turns out that my foster mother hated the country that took her in, the very country that gave her a bed to sleep in, food in her mouth, and a roof over her head. And she hated this country because of its wealth, its prosperity, its success, and its generosity. When I come back, the two different approaches to relationships. Thank you. We conservatives approach relationships from a desire to achieve an appropriate level of intimacy, and they, the socialists, approach relationships from a desire to exercise power. Romantic relationships, business relationships, family relationships, relationships between coworkers, relatives, and parishioners. In reality, the whole point of having a relationship is to achieve an appropriate level of intimacy. The key to achieving an appropriate level of intimacy is sincerity. By being engaged in constant power plays, one engages in acts of insincerity. And when one cannot be sincere, one cannot achieve an appropriate level of intimacy. Insincerity prevents a person from establishing caring, loving bonds with other people. Power-seeking creates insincerity, which manifests itself in suspicion, competition, and hostility. When I come back, reward success. Thank you very much. It used to be that parents would provide financial incentives for their children to succeed academically. We would be given money for good grades. Learning should be and is a reward in itself, but children are inherently myopic, and giving children money to get good grades gives them short-term motivation. The only other way to encourage children is to be academically successful is as an altruistic sacrifice for the good of the state. The left in the 60s shamed and intimidated parents for paying for grades. Students today are expected to do well in order to create a great society, and we see how well that has worked. Bringing back financial rewards for scholastic achievement is the conservative thing to do, the realistic thing to do, and the right thing to do. Up next, predictions and psychoanalysis. Thank you. Listening to the Glenn Beck show the other day, I heard Mr. Beck interviewing someone about the Democrats' impeachment of the President of the United States. His guest was encouraged to make predictions about the impeachment, and Mr. Beck engaged in psychoanalysis of the participants. This is wrong. It's wrong because it is nonsensical, counterproductive, and therefore unconservative. Predictions and psychoanalysis are for the left, and the right is about making value statements, saying what it is that we should do. We would all do well to remember that. Back in a minute. In conclusion, glorify Trump instead of condemning Pelosi. Growing up socialist was a drag. Pay for grades as a short-term motivator, and avoid psychoanalysis to maintain your conservative integrity. Who is the true conservative? He's the person that understands that conservatism is not just about politics, but culture as well. He is not selfish, but minds his own business. He acts like an adult. He is patriotic and uses common sense. He expresses what he knows and does so with certainty. He makes judgments, refuses to speculate, speaks clearly and definitively, and is not afraid to say no. He is open-minded, asking why rather than why not. He is consistent, credible, and influential, not ashamed of his existence, unafraid to learn or correct his mistakes. He is a normal American, and he's better than the socialist. He's a better friend, father, brother, family member, and a better person, period. You have to know that. If you don't know with every fiber of your being that being a true conservative is best, then you are wasting your time. That brings me to the end of another episode of The Drill. Remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win. Think about it.